Hey, everybody, and welcome to our second live show of 2022. So far, our track record is pretty good. We even did this on the same day as last week, but awesome. A little earlier. So you may have noticed that my desk is once again covered with items, and that's because, again, we're running the giveaway contest that we often do here at Alex and Autos, and there's a whole bunch of stuff to give away since we didn't do one for quite a while. And oddly enough, I said I was going to give them away this week, but we didn't get enough responses to give away everything. So I made the executive decision to just extend it for another week. So why don't we start off over there? Let us know what you have in your corner.
First off, we got a couple of hats here.
So many hats.
Got Mustang blue right there. Got Acura. Let's see. Hellcat.
Yeah, right, I think that's the... They don't call it the demon. Red Eye. The Red Eye. There we go.
There you go. Couple of those. We've got a beanie right here. It's just got the Chrysler name on there.
Chrysler beanie. Or the much more elegant Alex on Autos beanie. Look at that right there.
The value there.
Yeah.
More hats here. This one's got the GR86 from Toyota. Wagoneer from Jeep. What we got here? Another Jeep Wrangler, but this is green for the 4xe version, which is cool.
That's so you can plug yourself in.
Yes, yeah. And then Honda. Straight up Honda.
And that Honda logo has some sort of history, but it is lost on me. Let me know in the comment section if you know why it is spelled out Honda. That is lost on me, I have to say.
And we've got this nice little, I believe this is just sort of a camera carrying case, or really a carrying case for whatever you might want. And it's got a nice military pattern to it. So
it's the Merce. It's the man purse because it's camo. Yeah. It's the camo one, so you know it's the man purse. Yeah.
And now we got, I believe, a scarf. It's got the Bronco.
I kind of like this one.
Yeah, and I like that they included sort of the front grille design in there.
Yeah, and then there is actually a little Bronco there on the side, so if that's not enough
for all you winter dwellers. Got an Audi throw blanket right here with the nice 4 rings on there. So that's pretty cool branding.
And Audi has also donated a rug to a homeless shelter for you, which is handy.
GR86.
So not a rug, a blanket. We'll call it a blanket.
GR86, of course, right here. The
size on the t-shirt is large, so if you're not large and you end up getting that shirt, you will just have to give it to someone that is large.
And this is the Toyota
Corolla
Cross silhouette. That's you'll find that as like an Easter egg inside the car in a couple places. I don't think it looks too much like the exact model, but that's what they were going for.
Concept car.
Yeah, the concept. Yeah. All right, and then a nice little leather Chrysler Pacifica little bag type thing. I don't know if you call these, but moleskin or not moleskin, but that's a leather material.
Yep, it's made of the same leather as the seats.
There you go.
Go figure. And a few cars. We have a Mirai.
Yeah, Toyota Mirai, the brand new one, which looks so much better than the old one.
This one does not run on hydrogen,
though.
Not. Yeah.
And we got a nice, my favorite color of the Acura TLX Type S, which is this sort of yellow, I forget what they call it. Orchard.
Baby poo.
Baby poo.
Yeah, baby poo.
Well, that makes me think of it differently. And finally, on my side, we got these nice Bose noise-canceling headphones.
And then we have a Hyundai Satchel. It's got like dividers in it for various things. You can put a tablet computer in there, that sort of thing. You pop that over there, maybe. More headphones. These are wireless earbuds type ones.
These are Bang & Olufsen. So.
Yeah, ooh la la. UV sterilization box. Thank you for being banded there. This one measures your water consumption. This one looks like it has a cork, but it's actually a screw cap. It's a Lexus thermos there. A Hydro Flask. Everybody's into hydration lately, I think. Don't know who gave us that one. Nissan and Fender with a red one. 2 red ones, actually. This MX-31, as I recall, this is the one that keeps your stuff warm. Yes, this keeps your stuff warm. So there we go. A UV sterilizing one. I don't understand quite what this one's for. I'm assuming if you're dying of thirst and you happen upon a pond or a stream and you can just UV sterilize it.
That could be handy for adventures.
Yeah. Polestar.
Oh yeah, you got the nice.
And this is another one that also keeps your stuff hot, but it does it without electricity. So this one you have to heat up somehow, I think. I don't know. There are instructions on the back. You can Google it. Sunglasses, those are trendy, and a Mirai pen. So that is all of the giveaway. You will be able to apply for the giveaway by emailing itsaconspiracy@alexonautos.com. So there is a little comprehension test. You have to actually watch this part of the video to know. It's a conspiracy@alexonautos.com, and we will send you stuff. So hopefully there will be enough of a submission next week to actually do that drawing. So let's start rolling through the questions. I think I saw a super chat there somewhere. Did you see anything there?
Super chat. There's a new member.
Oh, a new member.
Yeah.
Hey, hi Brian. Thanks for joining. Be sure and email. I'll follow the instructions so you can get the exclusive member stuff. So you'll get early access for those that aren't members, because I'm bad at pushing this stuff apparently. You get early access to video reviews as long as there's not an embargo involved, private chats, things like that. You also get a snazzy stickers, if I can find examples, which I cannot. You'll just have to trust me. There's snazzy stickers somewhere and a lapel pin, things like that, and occasionally other Alex on Autos goodies that might occur. So there we go. That's what you get as a member.
Naveed asked about the LaCroix.
LaCroix. Oh, we're giving the LaCroix away? No.
But we might be drinking them throughout this video.
Refreshing. Not sponsored by LaCroix, sadly, so I should probably put some sort of logo over that. Alex and Auto stickers. Anyway, let's roll through the questions here. David is the first one, and he hung out for 10 minutes before this started. So we have to answer his question first. Why don't you go ahead and dive into that?
Yeah, it sounds like he might not even be on anymore, but he wanted us to make sure we covered this. And he's asking, when are we going to be testing the Lucid Air? And that's a very good question, because we really want to as soon as possible.
I have questions for Lucid, but one thing that I have noticed is that some of the new car companies out there, Rivian, Lucid, Fisker, etc., they have either no PR department or almost no PR department for us to talk to. And I honestly have been a little too lazy. I hope maybe this is something that you can help with here, Brian. But I have been a little lazy for years, and I have let them come to me. And I need to actually go and try to get these things.
Got to reel them in.
I got to reel them in. So Rivian is saying that they're going to send us a Rivian soon. Also, news is that according to their public side, so I pre-ordered a Rivian, and just FYI, that gives me zero special treatment with Rivian, as expected. And they did reach out to their early pre-orders, people that were going to come up for delivery timing soon. And they said that if you were willing to adjust your Rivian order, you could get it really soon. By really soon, they didn't give a date, but they did say that if you delete the Max Pack, select the Adventure trim level, and color did not matter on the outside, but they thought color on the inside might matter. So like the optional colors, the green interior, those seem to be the ones they're going to build first. Now they claim that I'm in the first 3,000 or next 3,000, I can't remember how they phrased it, units that are going to come around. So we'll see how that actually goes. But the Mach-E is going to be sold here soon. So if anybody's interested in the Mach-E, you can also reach out there at It's a Conspiracy at alexandautos.com. Otherwise, it is going away to Vroom probably next week.
So I see Tiger Eye Jazz has said that the Honda hat that we were showing earlier with that different font is what the manufacturing employees wear when they're building in Japan. So that could be what that is. And
that's kind of a nice Easter egg there.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ed Star here. I'm kind of reading the comment here. We'll go ahead and pop this up so you can see it. In the same week, I saw two news articles, one spelling the end of garage mechanics, the other saying car mechanics aren't going anywhere, just updating skill sets. What do we think? This is an interesting question. I think that there's obviously always going to be a need for true mechanics, in the sense that cars are a mechanical thing. So there's going to be a need for mechanics long term. What the EV revolution, if it occurs, I will preface this that way, means for that, I don't know. But right now, EVs account for less than 2% of new car sales. A lot of numbers that some folks out there throw around, like up 3 or 4%, those numbers, that's plug-in hybrids plus EVs. It's not pure EVs. So, and those still have an engine that needs to be maintained. It's, still could have all the same mechanical problems that cars have had for decades and decades. A lot of the newer car systems, I think, actually have made working on the car easier in some ways, because they'll tell you what the problem is. But if those electronic systems obviously go bad, then it's time to visit the dealer. So still lots of opportunities for dealer mechanics and independent mechanics both, I would say there. But with electric cars, we just don't know yet.
Well, for example, I know with
So there you go.
the Mercedes EQS, you as a buyer or owner of the EQS, you can't even get under the hood yourself.
Yep.
With that one, they lock it up only for the mechanics at the dealership. So I imagine the the title of mechanic is going to change a little bit because you already see service advisors. You see these sort of fancier names for the people that are working on the electric stuff out there right now. And I imagine that's just going to proliferate throughout the rest of the industry a little bit. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
And they haven't really said who else is going to be able to open the hood. I'm assuming if you pay Mercedes for, your Mercedes license, software package, et cetera, for your Mercedes specialty shop, then you'll be able to pop the hood on the EQS. But I don't know who else is going to be able to do it. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Moving along here, Brian is asking, he's selling his Mazda 3 6-speed. Wife hates it. Getting another 2019 Arteon with 41 months of warranty left for 50,000. I'm not quite understanding.
Warranty?
Oh, or 50,000. Got it. Okay. Yeah. With 5041. Okay, got it. Or a new Encore GX ST or GMC Terrain base. That's quite a split there.
It is, yeah.
I am strangely a fan of the Encore. It's adorable.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's the same thing as an Arteon.
It would be good to we can look this up really quick, but I bet you the cargo capacity is probably pretty close because the Arteon is a hatchback, liftback style with the larger, rear cargo area, but the Encore is a very tiny little thing. So when you actually put them next to each other and measure it, they might be very close in terms of what you can fit inside. It's just the shape of what you can fit inside them is very different.
I would bet that the Encore is going to be cheaper to keep around. Fuel economy has been pretty good. The transmissions have been pretty reliable, including the CVT. It's a General Motors design, it appears. Some details are still sketchy on exactly where that CVT comes from. And I know that CVT strikes fear into the hearts of car fans, but really only the very early Jatco ones had any sort of major problems. Most later ones actually have been statistically pretty decent. So I wouldn't be afraid of that. I don't know. Of those three, what would you pick?
I think I would pick the Encore, honestly, just because of what you just said. I think compared to the Terrain, the Terrain's a little bit older. I think styling-wise, I prefer the Encore. Also, some people are commenting about my volume. I don't know if that's still an issue, but they're saying my side sounds a little bit low, so I apologize. I don't know if it's we're not used to having the two people talking in here at once. I'm not sure.
I think you should talk louder.
I'll just talk louder.
There. I made a boo-boo with the Mevo. Anyway, sorry about that. Let's go back and re-answer this question then. So Jake is asking about the best lane keeping, assist, sound deadening, and general highway manners for midsize SUV and crossover. I would say that any of the midsize mainstream offerings are going to be pretty good. So Edge, Outback, Santa Fe, the Grand Cherokee is technically in this group as well. Any of them are going to be a good option for you. Specifically, you would want to make sure that the option that you're selecting is lane centering, is what most manufacturers, but not all, most manufacturers call that. Hyundai and Kia tend to call it highway driving assist, is their most aggressive lane centering feature there. As far as sound deadening and cabin isolation go, I would probably go towards Grand Cherokee or Santa Fe, but they are going to be more expensive. The Subaru Outback tends to be a little bit louder out on the road, as does the Chevy Blazer. So hopefully that helps you out there. And hopefully we are back. There we go. It's great now. We can hear both clearly. Yay.
Cool. Sorry about that.
Here we go. So Lord is asking, Lord Ultimate, what a screen name there. He's the ultimate. Lost audio. Okay, there we go. There we go. Poor guy. Sorry about that. Anyway, Lord Ultimate. Should I trade in my 10-year-old car when the used car market is high and get an EV now, or wait for EVs with an 800-volt battery, more range, etc., in a year or so?
Well, you don't even really, depending on where you live, you don't really have to wait a whole year because, Hyundai's coming out with the Ioniq 5. That's the first sort of mass market, lower cost option with the 800-volt charging system. But again, they're not selling them in every state. And in fact, in Atlanta, where I live, the main dealership, they're not even getting them till November, is what I've been told. So depending on where you live, you can get one sooner rather than later, but that's going to be your first option on the market for something that's not a Porsche Taycan,
Right. And I would say, cheapest car to own is obviously the one you already own. Generally speaking, that's almost always the answer. But if you want an EV and you're looking to go in that direction, obviously there's some great options now that aren't 800-volt systems. It's not going to be a problem long term. This is one key thing to say. So The CCS DC fast charging standard supports 800 volts, but all 800 volt chargers can charge at 400 volts because the charger is capable of adjusting the power to whatever is required. They're fully backwards compatible, and that is unlikely to ever change. I don't foresee any reason that CCS would need to change in that way. The one thing that's worth noting is obviously some people have been left behind. The future is definitely dead for CHAdeMO. And the future, I would actually say, is somewhat uncertain for Tesla's proprietary charging connector, depending on how EV sales go in the world. In Europe, for instance, Tesla has already switched to CCS connectors because they were mandated by the governments there to switch to the more popular connector. And in the US, there's been a lot less desire, a lot less appetite to mandate any such change. However, as other car companies start selling more and more EVs, I think the big one's going to be Ford here, really. Ford has been strangely aggressive all of a sudden with Mach-E, with Lightning, and the upcoming planned Lincoln and Ford SUV EVs, as well as the Hyundai Kia group, which are now launching a bazillion new EVs. So with those two manufacturers really pushing hard, there could be a point where the average EV is not a Tesla anymore. At this moment, that is absolutely not true. At this moment, 80% of things that DC fast charge at any reasonable rate, it's a Tesla. And anything that is charging quickly, it's like high 90% Teslas. But that is starting to change, interestingly. Ford's Mach-E has really been doing surprisingly well. But I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of a 400 volt EV at the moment, whether that is a Tesla or whether that's a Mach-E or something else, as long as it fits in your need case, in your lifestyle. So if you don't mind, if you don't regularly road trip, and if you occasionally do in your EV and a 45-minute stop is okay, then it's not really going to be a problem. And it's more important in bigger EVs, to be honest. Like once the Lightning and the Silverado EV are on sale simultaneously, I think the advantage goes to the Chevy Silverado. But that's going to be quite a long ways out. And people are actually already able to convert their orders for the Lightning today. Some dealers have been able to do that, to convert it to an official order, and it's coming very, very soon. The Silverado EV is starting at $105,000 in 2023. And sometime later in 2023, the very end of the year, there's going to be a work truck version. And then at some point later, there's going to be the version that you and I might actually be interested in, able to buy. Most likely, it's going to be a solid full year and a half to 2 years late compared to the Lightning. So if you're able to wait, then in that vehicle, I would say 800 volts is much more important because it will charge faster, you'll gain range faster than the Lightning. I don't know if I want to be the person doing a long road trip in a Lightning where you're actually doing 300 miles at a time and you want to take that battery from like 5% all the way up to 95%. That's going to be a long wait. And gaining that same amount of range in a Silverado EV should be not half as long, but maybe 40% faster, something along those lines. So hopefully that helps.
And now that we're harping on the truck side of things, but I will note that Tesla later this month is supposed to be talking about how they're actually going to with the Cybertruck, because I know we haven't heard really much about the Cybertruck recently from them. I mean, we have cryptic tweets to go off of from Elon Musk, but I believe there's a meeting he's having, or a stakeholder meeting. And the rumor is that there's going to now be a smaller version of the Cybertruck in addition to the massive version that they originally showed, which to me is still like a very big truck. So I guess that's so many people were like, we want a smaller option because that thing is so huge. So expect to see if it exists. So expect to see that, I think, later this month. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
I'm seeing 3 or 4 of the same comment from one person. So I think we're going to have to go with that because he's very antsy. JJ. Ooh. We got
let's go with Luma first here, since Luma super chatted us. We have to say sorry. Sometimes it's pay to play. Just the way that the world works here sometimes. But we will get back to the multiple question. Who was the multiple question here? JJ. So JJ, fear not, you will be next.
All right. Any reason why Acura doesn't have as broad of a lineup as Lexus? As far as I know, Acura's lineup is around half of Lexus's, and I don't understand why.
There is a good reason for this, I would say. Money is the big answer. That's the easy answer, to be honest. Honda's a much smaller car company than Toyota, considerably smaller in worldwide volume. So they just don't have the resources that Toyota has to put behind Lexus. Honda also, generally speaking, business-wise, tends to be less interested in losing money than Toyota is. Toyota actually is willing to lose money on a car or two here or there. Like, there is no way that LC makes money.
No.
Never. There's no way that the LFA ever made money. And Acura's NSX probably cost less to develop than an LFA, to be perfectly honest, the way that certain synergies worked inside Honda with that design. That's a big part of it. Toyota also has, on the SUV side, they've got Land Cruiser and Land Cruiser Prado in other world markets that they can Lexusify and bring to the US cheaply and easily. And just a broader portfolio of mainstream vehicles to base things on. But a lot of it simply just comes down to money. And Acura has consistently explored and then decided that it wasn't really a good idea to go off into the weeds. Like, they tried a wagon, they've had coupes. They didn't sell well enough for Acura, and they just decided to cut their losses. It's time to not do this. And I would say that's rationally the big difference. I mean, Hyundai with Genesis, it actually is to the next level versus Toyota. They don't make as many cars, but they're much more willing to lose money.
And Genesis now is kind of how Infiniti was 10, 15 years ago, but Infiniti is kind of going back the Lexus route and the Acura route with having more front-wheel drive based vehicles that are, as they said a couple years ago, Nissan Plus a little bit is what they're kind of going for now at Infiniti. So that's kind of what they're doing now. So we'll see how that goes for them. But right now it's kind of because some of the new models that they thought would really boost sales haven't been as successful for them as they expected, like the QX50.
QX50 is kind of
It's not a bad car, and then the 55.
There's nothing wrong with it.
It's a cool looking car, but overall there might be better options in that class. And then you've got Acura used to be.
I don't understand who the QX55 is for. It's for that person that says, I want a sedan, but I want it to be higher, or I want a crossover that's way less practical.
Right. Now, I've talked to a bunch of people in the past people who like want those cars, that's exactly what they say. They're saying, I do want to be in a swoopy, sexy body style vehicle, but I also love to have the view over the hood. I like to be higher up. So all the the GLE coupe, the X4, the X6, all those crossover coupes, they actually do a lot better than you think they would, and that's why there are so many more coming all the time. And even Genesis, there are rumors that the GV80 will get a crossover coupe version.
It's likely,
it's probably going to happen. So we'll see what that looks like. But it depends on the original design of the car for those. For me, if the actual coupe version is successful, it sort of depends on who you look at. But
yeah, it is interesting. But it's funny that we don't actually know how well any of these crossover coupes sell in a way, because the manufacturers won't ever split out the sales numbers. So X3 and X4 are always combined. GLE is one number for GLE coupe, GLE non-coupe, etc. Just like E-Class wagon and sedan and coupe and convertible are all pushed together as E-Class. So some of that is, them hiding the number because they don't really want to say. And it is interesting. Like, this is not exclusive to them either. Like, Jeep has decided that Grand Cherokee and Grand Cherokee L are going to be combined sales numbers wise. So we won't know how many 3 rows versus how many 2 rows they're selling. And the big reason given by them is that they don't want the competition to know whether or not the model is successful or not.
But we want to know.
Yeah. So let's go to JJ here.
JJ. All right. Alex, why did you put Nissan Z on your bad list?
Oh, bad list. I don't know if I would say bad list. That seems so judgy. I would say disappointed list more than bad list. My Nissan constantly I have such high hopes and wishes for Nissan and Infiniti, and then sometimes they go where I don't know. They go to places that are just the least path of least resistance place is what they will go to a lot. And the Z, I think, is kind of that same thing. It's based on a Q60. So the Q60 and Q50 have been around for a really long time. It's essentially a Q50 with a new body on it and the same engine that we've seen in the Q50 and Q60 for a while. It actually even has a few carryover parts from the previous generation Z car as well. So it's not a clean sheet redesign like everybody had really been wanting from Nissan. I mean, the reality is that it doesn't sell well. And so it is still more unique than a Supra. And it is more Nissan than a Supra is Toyota, because the Supra is obviously a BMW. But is it as good as a Supra? That we'll have to wait and see. If it has turned over a new leaf versus the Q60, it could be really entertaining. But based on the curb weight numbers that we've seen and everything else, that the details that we have seen out of the Z, I'm not expecting it to be that next level. I'm expecting it to be slightly lighter, slightly smaller Q60, which is kind of what it is. So any hopes that Nissan was going to, develop or buy a new inline six engine, and that's all kind of been thrown out. But at the same time, if it wasn't this, it wouldn't exist. If Nissan had to go and develop a unique platform for it, it just would never have gotten off the ground, and no one at Nissan would ever have allowed it to happen, because it's just so expensive to develop a new car platform, which is why BRZ and 86 are shared, why Supra and Z4 are shared, why Corolla Cross and some mysterious Mazda thing are shared, why Lexus is theoretically going to be using a Mazda inline six engine at some point, and Nissan doesn't have that kind of a relationship with other car companies anymore. There was a tie-in with Mercedes where they were borrowing with some Mercedes platforms and some Mercedes engine designs. And now it seems like that has just kind of narrowed down to licensing the 9-speed automatic transmission from Mercedes, which is a fine transmission, but it doesn't answer all the other questions, I guess. Like in my head, if Nissan had done a Toyota, how do you feel about this? If they had gotten an agreement from Mercedes and, like, I don't know, borrowed an SL, and it was like a Nissan SL. That could have been epic.
It probably wouldn't be starting around 40,000, though. I'll say that much. I
Could
will say,
be.
well, and the other thing about the Z for me is, I think with the fact that it is, as we've all kind of discovered and done the digging to find this out, it is a reskinned version of the old body, but I think what they did with it is really, in my opinion, good looking. And
it looks good.
It's very sharp. It looks very modern on the outside. Yeah, the inside shares some interior bits, but
it got expensive too.
Yeah, and then I know you mentioned that, Nissan doesn't really do partnerships, but they are with Mitsubishi. So that new Mitsubishi Outlander is basically a Nissan Rogue.
I mean, it's not a partnership. They bought Mitsubishi. Let's be honest.
So,
yeah.
So a lot of Mitsubishi.
That's like Volkswagen saying that we have a partnership with Porsche.
Oh, true. Except Porsche they want to separate themselves as far as possible.
Yeah, it's like, no, Volkswagen owns you. Volkswagen owns Porsche. So that it is interesting. I would not choose a BRZ over a Nissan Z. I would say, if you're interested in a Z, I think only a Z or a Supra or something like that would satisfy, because it's a different vehicle. BRZ is lightweight baby's first track car, and Z and Supra are sort of the next track car. And they're a bigger, heavier, more powerful, entirely different personality, I would say there. Here we go. Why don't you go ahead with that one here?
Your top 3 choices of SUVs under $50,000. All right.
Ooh, under 50,000.
That's a good limit, or good ceiling right there. For me right now, I'm gonna still give the Hyundai Kia twins a spot. So Hyundai Palisade, Kia Telluride, they're still
those are very good.
Very good. They're both about to receive some mid-cycle refreshes, so stay tuned for that. Sometime this year, they'll get some updated front looks and interior bits. But even as they are right now, they're really good.
So Sumit, why don't you tell us down there if you were thinking 3-row or 2-row? Because that just suddenly popped in my head. I was thinking 2-row when you went 3-row.
I went 3-row, yeah. And I guess I'm going to give those both one spot, because they're basically the same vehicle, just different designs. Let's think. Maybe we should let's bounce. I'll go one, you go one, I go one, so I can think about the next one.
I am thinking Santa Fe is a really good value. So on the lower end of this price scale, on the 2, I'm thinking 2 rows here initially until you answer us down there. So I'm thinking Santa Fe RDX is a really good value as well. Let's think, what would a third be there? I really like the GV70. It is a little pricey. It's going to be right at the ceiling there. Grand Cherokee in the 2-row segment is also a good solid option. I think a lot of people have been really impressed by the Grand Cherokee, and it's hard to go wrong with a whole bunch of others. So sort of in my runner-up category, I might put, Blazer. Actually, I kind of like the design. Oh, two-row. There we go. So there's a good answer here. So a Blazer, Ford Edge. Edge is getting old, but Ford keeps refreshing it. And actually, it's still good to drive. So I would put the Edge on that list as well.
I just thought of Mazda CX-5. Still looks good.
CX-5's getting a little old,
it's old,
though,
but
for
it
me.
still drives really well.
CX-50 is coming soon,
the
though.
50 is coming, but it's not a replacement for the CX-5.
That's what they claim.
It's going to be just sort of this parallel universe that
I don't believe it. I think it's going to.
It'll eventually, probably.
I think it's like a 1 year only parallel.
It looks good. I mean, they did only show off pictures of the off-road rugged version look of it, and I think that looks really good for a Mazda, but of course they won't all look like that. And I don't think that car is going to be topping out at 50,000, but it will definitely fit in that window for sure. So I don't know, stay tuned for more on that one as we get more information. But I don't know.
Let's see. I would say ones to avoid, ones that I would personally not have on my shopping list, would include the Venza. The Venza is awfully small for a vehicle its price tag. It actually is smaller inside than a RAV4 in some dimensions because it basically is a RAV4 hybrid that they made more stylish. It's the Harrier from Japan. So in my opinion, if you're thinking Venza, I would just buy a RAV4 hybrid, unless you can get a screaming deal on a Venza, which do strangely exist. My next door neighbor was looking at a RAV4 hybrid and the dealer sold her a Venza for less than the RAV4 hybrid because they're really not moving. And I think the reason is because everybody was hoping that the Venza would be bigger inside, and it's just not. It's just the luxury RAV4. Also under $50,000, I wouldn't do the Lexus RX. It's due for a redesign here soon. It's getting a little old there as well. And although I like the Outback for its low price tag, if you're pushing $50,000, I think it's just not nice enough inside to be in the running anymore.
Yeah. Another one I would say no to is the Ford Explorer. That's a three-row Ford Explorer, just because it's for some reason this generation they went backwards in design in the interior specifically for me. I know you said two-row, so I don't know. I'm digressing there now, but that was one that popped in my head as a no. And also, first-year reliability with Ford isn't always the best in terms of in my experience. So that's
yes. That actually brings me back to a question that I saw here earlier here. About first year with a Corolla Cross. Someone was asking about that. So sorry, Brian, I'll get to you in just a second here. I personally am never bothered by first year reliability. I know that a lot of people have, issues with this. First year reliability tends to be not my car doesn't move. It's not like it's stuck in my driveway. First year reliability problems tend to be fit and finish issues, which have really had a bit problem with Tundra. So apparently I've been getting a lot of emails from people complaining about Tundra. There's a lot of chatter on Tundra forums where body panels are misaligned. Things are delivered with scratches in odd places because obviously things have been reworked in the factory. But it's mainly just sort of body panel alignment issues in the first year. Some people are bothered by that. Some people are not. The likelihood of a recall is much higher in the first year. But recalls tend to be things like the Mach-E's recall, where it's like, we're not sure if all the windows got glued on right. You don't know if your window didn't get glued on right. We're just not sure. So it needs to come back to get checked. Or a lot of software tweaks here and there. That's very, very common, is software tweaks, little bugs here and there. So does it affect the long-term drivability and long-term usability of the car? Most likely not. Especially in a mechanical front, but it may be annoying to some people, and it may not be annoying at all to other people. On the Corolla Cross, I would say, with the exception of obviously the Tundra, which has suddenly, very surprisingly, had some first-year reliability problems, I would say if you want a new car, I would be much less worried about Toyota's reliability in the first year than anybody else's, but there's obviously still an opportunity for a flaw.
Yeah, and one thing to also consider is the Corolla Cross doesn't really fall into this category yet, but a lot of cars that are going very touchscreen heavy with their interiors, you're going to start, probably dealing with issues where, the software glitches, but also like features that are controlled solely by the user experience of that touchscreen might be compromised if there's some sort of electrical failure or whatever that may be, especially with like instrument clusters. Like for example, Genesis has their 3D instrument cluster. Mercedes has a 3D one. I mean, how long does that work for? How long does stuff like that work? And I don't know. It's more screens, the more opportunity for physical things not to break, but actual software glitches to happen. So you'll see more and more of that as the years go by, because it's just happening every day.
So here's a good one from another Brian.
Love to see it. 2012 Sienna he's got with 250,000 miles on it, and he's wondering if he should trade it in for the new Sienna hybrid, but he's worried about the longevity of that hybrid system. I believe Toyota's hybrid systems are generally pretty reliable.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like, I know with that Sienna, they didn't use the old like V6 hybrid combination they used to do with like the Highlander. It's actually a 4-cylinder hybrid combination, so that is something to consider. You're going to notice that new Sienna is a lot slower than your 2012.
That's true.
It doesn't have that V6.
It will definitely be smaller. Yeah,
it's definitely slow to 0 to 60, which not for most minivan drivers is important. But if you're on the highway trying to pass somebody, if you got you're going on a trip and you've got a car full of kids, that might be important to be able to actually safely get around certain situations, and that car is going to be slower. In terms of the reliability, I don't think that should be a super huge issue, but again,
long-term reliability generally is very good in Toyota's hybrids, and it's mainly by design, because a lot of people, especially early on when hybrids were very new, a lot of people assumed that a hybrid was actually more complicated than a non-hybrid. And with some hybrids, that is the case. So when you take a look at mechanical complexity of a Hyundai hybrid or a Kia hybrid, or the Ford truck hybrid system, or the new Toyota truck hybrid system, those are arguably more complicated than a traditional vehicle with an automatic transmission. But when we talk about Toyota's core hybrids, RAV4 hybrid, Sienna hybrid, Highlander hybrid, etc., Ford's core hybrids, which up till now had been the Ford Escape hybrid, and now include the Maverick hybrid, those lower end hybrids in there, and the Chrysler Pacifica, oddly enough, these hybrid systems all operate on the same basic principle and the same basic patent designs. They're incredibly simple. Instead of a traditional automatic transmission with 3 to 4 gear sets and clutches and bands, I should say they don't use bands anymore, but clutches, definitely multiple clutches inside the transmission, solenoids to control them, all that sort of stuff. These core hybrid systems from Ford, from Stellantis, and from Toyota, they use one planetary gear set, 2 electric motors, and a gasoline engine. And that is really it. So there's not even a reverse gear. If you want to go backwards, it spins the motor backwards and just moves the car backwards. So mechanical complexity is actually very, very low in these systems. And that's why Prius has consistently been one of the most reliable new vehicles you can buy in America, because mechanically it is very, very simple. And that reliability has often gone on to include hybrid variants of the rest of Toyota's lineup. So detailed statistics are not actually available, but by most reliability metrics that I've been able to take a deeper dive into, generally speaking, the hybrid version of a Toyota product is more reliable than the non-hybrid version. So if I were a betting man, I would bet that the hybrid RAV4 is more reliable than the non-hybrid. The hybrid Highlander is more reliable than its non-hybrid. And I would have no worries about long-term reliability in the Sienna. So it's very common to have high mileage Toyota hybrids out there with 0 transmission problems. Generally speaking, in those high mileage hybrids, the same thing that's gone wrong in there could have gone wrong in a regular vehicle, and it usually just has to do with the gasoline engine. Prius's 250, 300,000 miles, generally it's just seals have become looser, and now they can't pass emissions, but they still run, or they smoke a lot, or that kind of thing. Rings go bad. But that could happen in any vehicle. Battery lifetime, absolutely not a concern in those vehicles because of the way that hybrids use batteries as well. So I should add that. Remember, hybrid does not use the entire battery. They use only a small portion of the battery. Toyota uses batteries that are more appropriate for this situation as well. They really love nickel metal hydride batteries in most of their vehicles. Those have a very good use profile for hybrids in this way as well. And so I would have no worries about it. And as your battery degrades over time, everybody's does, as long as it doesn't short out and fail, it doesn't really matter in the hybrid. You will just notice that over time, your fuel economy may slightly drop, but statistically, it's actually a very small amount. Over 200,000 miles, maybe at the end, you're getting 5% less fuel economy than you did at the beginning. So here's a good one from Chris.
Given your experience with living with solar power and EVs, Alex, I don't have any experience in that. Just so you're wondering, would you talk about
you're not off grid?
I'm not off grid. I'm very much on the grid.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, so we would like to talk about manufacturers pushing all electric vehicles in the next decade, and what will be needed from an infrastructure perspective to enable a mass adoption. Very good question.
Yep,
I'm starting to see some of the Tesla charging stations full, and wondering, as we get more and more driving, hybrid electric stuff, how will cities like the big cities out there demand or handle the demand? And that's good because, I will just, before you go, I think one thing I would point out is, it's Tesla's obviously got their supercharger network, but they're starting to slowly open those up to other brands. In Norway right now, they're testing that out right now. So eventually, hopefully here in the United States, that'll happen too. So other cars can actually access them. Because as you said, they're very prolific with how many they have out there, but you can't just go within any car and plug in. So that will actually enable a lot more adoption, in my opinion.
We'll see. Yeah. I'm not as optimistic at Tesla opening up the supercharger network in the US because they would need plugs for that. And so they would need to retrofit every supercharger station with a CCS plug that is not going to get used by a Tesla. And it's good branding for Tesla to be separate so far. It's the constant brag from the Teslarati is, oh, well, nobody else has the supercharger network. So in a way, that is a lock-in for Tesla that they have a network that is arguably better placed at the moment, still currently in some regions than Electrify America. But they have this big branding advantage. Like for the most part, actually Electrify America is getting very, very close to Supercharger network in terms of distribution and functionality, et cetera. And they will go faster, theoretically, if there's a vehicle that can do it. But there's still that solid branding and marketing there around the Supercharger network. On the rest of it, as many of you watching probably know, I tend to be an EV pragmatist. I have an EV, I have a hydrogen vehicle, I live off the grid, etc. But I'm also a realist when it comes to infrastructure, etc. And a lot of people don't realize how much energy an electric vehicle is consuming while it's charging. Charging your Lightning pickup truck to drive 300 miles will consume more power than the average American home will consume in 8 days. Average American home consumes about 24 kilowatt hours a day. And it will take about 8 times that to fill a 200 kilowatt hour battery. Actually, let me rephrase that. With the Lightning, it's about 6 times. With the Silverado EV, it'll be 8 times because the battery is that much larger in the Silverado. So we're talking about a lot of power, and all the power that the average American home is consuming in those 8 days or 6 days is happening in 40 to 50 minutes. So it's a massive, massive draw. But this is not an insurmountable problem. The same predictions around electric vehicles, oddly enough, when you look historically, happened in about the 1950s when everybody started getting air conditioning in the South. And everybody's mind was blown. Oh my God, how can we possibly power all these air conditionings and all these refrigerators? And everybody wants an electric oven. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And all these ovens and air conditionings and refrigerators are all on at the same time. And then someone tossed in an electric dryer. So it's not insurmountable. These loads and the increase in electricity loads have it happened before, and everybody solved the problem. You just have to you'll just end up paying for it. It's just a matter of you put the load on the grid, and the grid, it's not like it happens tomorrow. Also, I would add that's part of what helps here. So, you have to go buy the car, then you have to plug it in at home. And if everybody starts doing this, then the utility company goes, oh, wow, there's an increase in demand. We need to bring on more generation, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. I would also add to this that electricity consumption in the US actually has been very, very stable or slightly declined in some areas. So the average California home, for instance, actually uses less power today than they did 20 years ago. So there's actually excess capacity available on the grid in areas that have adopted energy efficiency standards, because your air conditioning uses less power than it did 20 years ago. So does your fridge, so does your washing machine, etc. So that's actually a benefit in this process. So I'm not overly concerned.
Another thing that and this is sort of a little aside, but like one other thing that I'm hearing a lot about is the maintenance and upkeep of existing charging stations has become a problem. As you said, a lot of times people go to charging stations and they're full, but if they're not full, one of the charging plugs doesn't work, or one of the actual stations or one of the units at the station is just broken down, and then you get there and you can't use it and you're stranded. So I've seen a lot of stories about that. And if the government wants to spend a lot of money on building new ones, they also need to make sure they're spending money on keeping up with the existing ones, because that's just it doesn't really help if you make new ones and there's still all these other ones that don't work very well. So.
And this is kind of a two-way street because it's like, I've talked with people at Electrify America about this because there's at the beginning of Electrify America, there was a network without cars. So Electrify America had this, 700 stations or whatever the number is now across the US. And the only thing you could drive it on it was like a Bolt, and nobody was going to drive their Bolt that far. It was uncomfortable enough to be in it for 30 minutes. Did I say that out loud? My bad. The seats were really uncomfortable in the pre-refresh Bolt. That's where I'm going there. I found it particularly uncomfortable in the shoulder area. The new Bolt, not a problem, except they catch on fire. Did I say that out loud? My bad. So now we have things that can use the Electrify America stations, and people then have started saying, well, occasionally this plug doesn't work or that plug doesn't work. Or I went to the station and I tried 4 plugs and all the plugs wouldn't charge my car. What's interesting to me is that Electrify America part of this is, I think, their problem. Electrify America does not make it easy to report a station issue, but you can report it. You can tweet Electrify America, the station did not work, and they will look into that for you based on the tweet. You can also email them, you can call them, etc. And so if you are somewhere and you need to charge, you can call Electrify America. They will restart the station, and usually it is just fine. The problem and the reason that some of them end up broken seems to be mainly, according to Electrify America, mainly certain generation Chevy Bolts and a few other EVs that had like some funky software mismatches, and someone tried to charge it and it didn't charge, and so it bricked the charger. And then they were, oh, that one didn't work, and they try the next one, and then they kill that charger, and they try the next one and they kill that charger. But there's actually nothing wrong with the charger. The big important thing to remember about non-Tesla charging is that this is an Android ecosystem or a Windows ecosystem. We have an agreed on standard, and I build the car and you build the charger and you build another charger, and we've all agreed how this charging standard should work, but there's no independent verification. Electrify America doesn't have access to one of every car out there to try and make sure it will charge, and every software version of every car out there. Neither do, this blows my mind still, neither does like Ford or General Motors or anybody else that's building the electric car. They don't have an ABB station and a Delta station and all the other companies that are making DC fast charge stations out there. They don't have access to those either to verify them with their car. Hopefully at some point in time that can be worked on better, but there is definitely a disconnect there.
Alrighty, well,
Naveed here.
Yeah, let's see, Naveed. He's selling his 2017 F-Pace, and he's looking at a GV70. Are the driving dynamics similar? He said the Jag wasn't very comfortable.
Yeah, I'm assuming you mean 21 by 21 inch wheels. If you have an F-Pace with 21 inch wheels, I would say yes. That would definitely be the comfort problem on an F-Pace.
Now you can get the GV70 with, I believe those top wheels are 21.
Yeah, you can get them with pretty big wheels too.
So
yeah, if you want comfort, don't get big wheels. That is the thing.
Case, yeah.
There is definitely a push in a lot of sports vehicles to get huge wheels. Like that S-Class that we had 21 inch wheels and 30 series tires. In a big floaty S-Class. I mean, the suspension floated over everything except potholes. When it fell in, it was not good. And I have a feeling that one pothole we were driving it, I think one pothole actually did create like a little bulge on the tire in the rear that we noticed as it was getting picked up and taken away. So definitely something to keep in mind. If you live in an area where roads have potholes, which is everywhere, don't get 21 or 22 inch wheels. Don't even get the 20 inch wheels. Try and, be rational. 18, 19s, those are still pretty big wheels. As far as driving dynamics go, actually the GV70 is very good, but I would say that I think I like the F-Pace's driving dynamics a little bit better. And it could just be me, but I have always really loved the way that Jaguar tunes a steering rack and a front suspension. So the F-Pace drives very, very well. I've always loved the particular way that Jaguar has tuned their driving dynamics. The GV70 is going to be probably more reliable. Fuel economy actually is probably pretty close. GV70 is not overly fuel efficient. It is pretty though. So let us know what you end up getting.
Yeah.
And we have Brian here next.
Wow.
Another Brian.
You love to see it. And you're all spelling it the right way. That's the right way.
Is that the right way?
That's the right
no
way.
BRY?
No BRYs.
Oh,
if you are a BRY, no hate, but just saying.
Okay.
We're the better ones. Okay. All right. So he's 6 foot all torso, looking for, nice head.
All torso. Wow. Like just tiny little legs. Just a thalidomide baby. Just all torso, little legs. Okay.
All right. When you say cross, I assume Corolla Cross there. Yeah. I know the Corolla Cross is pretty roomy. It's got quite a bit of headroom. And so does the Taos. I have not been in the Trailblazer myself or the Encore GX actually, but
I have been in all of those. I would say the Buick and the Trailblazer and the Taos are probably going to be among the best. Generally speaking, Buick and Kia especially like to put in really long front seat tracks. So as far as roominess on the inside, they tend to be a little bit better. But if you're not really leggy, if you're more of a longer torso person, then headroom is going to be the biggest metric for you, the actual traditional headroom score that manufacturers have on. So I would say focus on that headroom score the most. And of course, sit in them, spend a lot of time in them to make sure that you're in a comfortable position. As far as driving dynamics go, I like the Encore and the Taos the best there of that group. I would also say definitely keep the Seltos in mind. But as far as deals go, the Trailblazer is a fantastic deal. It is one of the best new car deals because it's just about $20,000 starting. The base price raised up a little bit for 2022, as I recall, but it is a screaming deal. It's roomy inside. It's got a reasonable and usable back seat. I think it looks pretty good, and the fuel economy is really great too. So not a lot to go wrong with the Trailblazer. I think that actually did not end up on my best cars for 2022 list, but thinking back on it, it probably should be there because I really love the Trailblazer. Somehow I just forgot it. It offends all Trailblazer owners prior to this baby Trailblazer, since so does the Blazer. But as far as a good new subcompact thing, the Trailblazer is fantastic because it's also bigger than average. So, and it's roomier inside than a Taos or a Corolla Cross or a Seltos or a Nero or a Soul or anything really in that category. And it's almost as good of a deal as like a Crosstrek, but it's roomier on the inside and I actually think nicer too. So I like it a little bit better. Oh, here we go. What do you think about this one? Will Toyota and Subaru become the next Hyundai and Kia?
Well, I'm not surprised that many people might think that that's sort of how the setup is. They're not nearly as related as Hyundai and Kia are, but of course Toyota does own a pretty good chunk of Subaru, and you are starting to see a lot of that rebadging situation. So like the new BZ4X and the Subaru Solterra are basically the exact same car with a slightly different front end. The BRZ 86 situation is still happening. But overall, I don't know if they're generally trying to go in that direction. I don't think they're trying to.
It's a little unclear at the moment. Toyota owns 20% of Subaru's parent company. And technically, Hyundai owns about 40-something% of Kia. But the way that works in Korea is that effectively Kia is controlled by Hyundai. It's not like it's only 40%. And so if Kia wants to go in a different direction, they can do that if they want. Absolutely not. If Hyundai wants Kia to go in this direction, it's dance monkey, because they're the ones that are controlling this contraption. Toyota and Subaru. Toyota has a lot of influence with Subaru. They choose not to have much control. It does benefit Subaru in the opening of the Toyota parts bin. So there is under the skin more and more sharing of components and logistics and supply chain synergies. Their hybrid system that we probably will see more of in the future is based off of the hybrid system in the Camry, although it's been rearranged for a rear-wheel drive based drivetrain. And of course, as you said, the Solterra, et cetera, coming up. It appears that the main motivation right now. It appears that the main motivation with Toyota for the Subaru tie-up is that they're not interested in acquiring anybody in bankruptcy like Mitsubishi and Nissan. That whole deal was a little raw for Nissan, it seems. Not everybody was keen on it. The government pushed it super duper hard in Japan. And so the writing's on the wall that Honda's too small. So if either Subaru or Mazda fail, Toyota's going to be the one on the line to pick up the tab. And so it's in Toyota's best interest to prop up these two companies and have cooperations in some way, etc., rather than buy them in the fire sale. Let's move on here to the next question. When do we get to drive the MDX Type S? Oh, I am so sad. It was supposed to be this week. Yep. So we don't know when that is going to happen again. The MDX Type S was rather unfortunately canceled due to COVID, the launch drive for it. And it may happen in a few weeks, or we may just get set the vehicle. We do not know at this point. It should be on sale in the next few months. When you will see it on the dealer lot, we don't know either. Pricing released, early thoughts on pricing release. What do you think about that?
But it's like right around 70 grand, I think.
Yeah.
It's a little more than I was expecting. I think it might have
66,700 starting.
Yeah, so nearly 70. I don't know. I mean,
it is a little pricey, but the TLX Type S was a little pricey too. I found it spendy.
Yeah.
And it's is the MDX Type S enough to get you to buy it over an X5 with the 3-liter turbo?
Right. And I've driven the TLX Type S, and I do, and I think other people out there who have driven it have said it's not as quick as people were expecting it to be, and that same engine is going to be in the MDX, and obviously that's a much heavier vehicle, so that's why we're very curious to drive it to see, does this engine work well here too, or like we'll see. So,
and the TLX is pretty heavy,
and it's a heavy car.
Yeah, and the MDX is a little heavier still, but it's like it's I would say it depends on what you're looking at. Also, the Acura folks were really, really crystal clear. And they said, well, Type S has never been M or AMG. It's always been sort of like S-line with a bit more oomph, in their opinion. So they see TLX Type S as an S4 competitor, not an RS4. So it's never been RS. They see it as maybe an M340i alternative, but not really a direct competitor because it's slower. So that was their logic. And keep that in mind with the MDX. So the MDX Type S is unlikely to be as fast as the 400 horsepower XC90 or the SQ7.
Or even an Explorer ST.
Right. Yeah. So definitely keep that in mind there.
What cars make you do a double take when you see it?
Ooh, not too many for me. Things that are random and rare, I guess, more than new.
For me, it's the Kia Stinger, and still to this day, every time I see one, especially in the ceramic silver, love that car. Lexus LC 500, still a stunning design to me. Every time I see one, I'm still very excited. I don't know, they look really good.
The LC 500 is very pretty.
So pretty, I think.
Yeah,
they did a good job of keeping the concept styling, as everyone knows. It looks straight like a concept car. So that one's a double take for me. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head. If I saw a Rivian in person, which I've seen one now.
You did do a double take on the Rivian. Yes, you did.
Like, my eyes went. Those are cool looking cars. I know some people are split on the front design with the lights, how they've done them, but I think overall it's a cool looking truck. And in the SUV, I think it even looks better. So when I see that, I will probably just lose my head. So that's for me. That's my answer.
This is an interesting one. So someone has decided to keep his 05 Land Cruiser and his 2015 Honda Accord V6 for the rest of his life due to a midlife crisis. Later move to EV when market matures. That is an interesting one. I would not have thought these two vehicles. I'm curious, why Land Cruiser? Why Accord? Why not Land Cruiser and rear wheel drive sports car? I don't know. Somehow in my head they don't quite go together. But I do like both. So I'm curious. If you're planning on off-roading with your Land Cruiser, they are obviously very solid. Although I have always, and I know this is highly controversial, I have always thought that the reputation of the Land Cruiser exceeded the actuality of the Land Cruiser. And I know that's controversial. definitely reliable. If you were going to cross the Sahara and you had access to tires and things like that, and you needed to make it, that might be a great option. But as far as all-wheel drive capability at a park or in a more easily accessible place where maybe maintenance is more available, there are definitely better off-road vehicles than the Land Cruiser, although it is certainly iconic, and I think it's really cool. I've always loved the coolness factor of the Land Cruiser. The look, the style, honestly the exclusivity, because there aren't very many of them, and the fact that Toyota is really very, very committed to them is definitely a key thing there. As far as moving later to EV when the market matures, I'm wondering if you will be happy with anything in the EV market from these two vehicles. It's going to be a while until we see anything that is truly as go anywhereable as a Land Cruiser on the EV side. And by that, I don't mean all-wheel drive capability, because obviously that's excellent in the Rivian, as it's going to be in the new, the Trail something, what do they call the Silverado, the Trail Boss? Trail Boss Silverado or something like that. Remember, curb weight is really important when it comes to off-roading. And any of those options is going to be fantastically heavy compared to an 05 Land Cruiser, which wasn't exactly light. It wasn't light. I mean, it's like there's a reason that, a Wrangler can go places that a Land Cruiser can't. It dimensions, which are tricky for an EV with a big battery pack. It's hard to make a really small EV with a really big battery pack. And it's hard to make something small and light with a big battery pack as well. So it's going to be a while, I think, till we see anything like that. And I would also say that on the Accord front, it's going to be a while till you find something that is lightweight and fun and inexpensive in that same way on the EV front, because lightweight and inexpensive are, just not there.
They're not in the equation.
They're not in the equation at the moment. So that's kind of tricky as well. Here's a good question.
Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid or Lexus NX hybrid for daily commutes and sometimes long drives. Well, depends on how nice of a car you want. I mean, price-wise, actually, if you go for a lower-end NX or a higher-end Santa Fe, they're going to be pretty close in price. One's bigger. The Santa Fe has a lot more room. It's more upright, but it's also a pretty nice car. And the outgoing NX, I actually think, is on par with the interior. Well, its interior is on par with current Santa Fe, but the new NX did bump things up a little bit. I think they've gotten a little bit nicer, but they've also switched back to a traditional touchscreen design and everything.
And I don't like their touchscreen.
And he doesn't like them. So
the software just seems a little half-baked at the moment. And I also, it's the functionality of the software is a little half-baked. I love the fact that when you CarPlay, it uses the entire screen, though. It is like the biggest CarPlay thing you have seen in your whole life. And it is gorgeous. But like the fact that the software, that the onboard nav doesn't work if you don't have a cell signal, it's only internet only, not internet connected. It's internet only. And for me, the only time I use the factory nav, if I have it, is when I don't have a cell signal. So if you don't have a cell signal and you can't use Google Maps on your phone, which is prettier than Google Maps on the car, then what's the point if you can't also use the cars? That's a bummer for me.
That was a weird move, honestly.
Yeah, it was an interesting one.
And I'm surprised even so. I know there's a subscription, right? Like there's after 3 years, you have to start paying for it.
Or 1 year if you buy a Toyota. So 3 years in Lexus, 1 year Toyota.
Gotcha, yeah, it's interesting that they did that, because especially knowing where we are today, with tech and smartphones and all that, you'd think that they wouldn't have chosen that option or they wouldn't have gone that way, because that really decreases your ability to use it.
Toyota's answer was, this way we can sell cars without it for less, and then if you want it, you can pay for it.
On the existing car that you bought that didn't
theoretically,
have
yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, so theoretically, if you buy like the 8-inch screen in a Tundra or any new upcoming products that will get it, as I recall, the Tundra 8-inch screen either doesn't have it or it's like a 1-month subscription, and then you can option into it. And then the big screen in the Tundra has the 1-year thing, and then the Lexus gets the 3-year thing.
And then in terms
of I probably would pick the Santa Fe hybrid if it were me.
It depends on also, I mean, they also, with commutes and long drives, the active safety stuff, like the lane keep and the adaptive cruise, generally Hyundai's is pretty good and maybe better than
they're
Lexus
pretty
is
equal, I
existing.
think, in the new NX.
Okay.
They're pretty equal
So
there.
I haven't been in one. So
Can you get the calligraphy trim with the hybrid or not? I
I
forget.
believe you can.
Okay. So I'm sure someone will correct us if we get that wrong too. My memory is bad as to whether that was turbo only, which if it is turbo only, then that would make me sad, because that's the trim where you get the comfort in the Santa Fe that you might be looking for in a luxury vehicle with the extending thigh cushion, etc.
You cannot. The highest trim is limited.
So,
which is still nice, but the calligraphy
still nice.
does
But
step
yeah,
it
the
up
calligraphy is definitely nicer.
Nice.
So let's see here. Ooh, this is a good one. Which is the best value, buying an R1T or a Maverick and a Miata for the same money? Obviously, best value would be Miata and Maverick. That is absolutely without question.
Still going to undercut that R1T.
I mean, it's not going to be fancy. And let's be honest, half the reason to buy a luxury car or a niche market EV is because it's that cool new thing. So I would say value is never in the equation when you're looking at the cool new thing. No one's ever going to say, I bought the S-Class because it was a great value. You buy it because it has the big Mercedes logo on the front and it's really comfy, cool, and whatever. And the same thing honestly goes for the Rivian. It's a lovely truck. I've driven one for a very brief amount of time. A friend of mine works at Rivian. I can't mention him. And I was not allowed to film it or take photos even of it. And I'm probably going to get stabbed in the night for even talking about it here. But the Rivian's lovely. Absolutely nothing wrong with Rivian. It's a luxury truck, is the best way to describe it. You know, the interior's opulent, wood trim everywhere. You know, it's got the latest in all-wheel drive, electric all-wheel drive systems, basically, which is totally cool. Is it a good value? No.
Not this is a deal breaker, but you can't get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
Do I want one? Yes.
Yeah,
is it a good value? No. Do I have one on order? Also, yes. Will I keep it? Probably not. It is not going to be mine. It's going to be a company car. So, you know, Brian will eventually get to drive it for a while, etc. There'll be road trips, etc. in it, but it's probably going to only hang out from 6 months to a year, or something like that, before we move on. So, yeah. Let's see here. When will we take a deep dive on the Mach-E GT? That was going to be this week, but it got moved. So it's going to be 3 weeks-ish from now. We'll have a deep dive into the Mach-E GT. So there's already a lot of info on the channel, I would say, on the Mach-E GT. If you're interested, let me know specifically what you would like us to cover on the Mach-E GT if we haven't already done so. Yeah, I mean, it's a nicer, faster Mach-E, and I would say if you are looking to buy a GT, get the performance pack. Don't skip that one. You get the adaptive dampers, and you get slightly faster 0 to 60. But for me, it's the adaptive dampers and the prettier wheels. Worth it. The odd thing I think about the Mach-E and the Mach-E GT is that the best riding, most comfortable Mach-E is the GT with the performance pack, which is weird, because like you've experienced this, the Mach-E's firm and bouncy. It's got this odd big battery thing, and it rides like the Model Y and it rides like the Model 3, obviously because it's a Model Y copy. I mean, Ford obviously was like, oh, there's this Model 3 out. The Model Y is going to be that with a bigger box in the back. Clearly, that's what the Mach-E should be tuned like. And they did it. So better for worse. Some people love that. I prefer something that's a little softer and more compliant. And the strange thing, again, is that the softer and more compliant one is the GT with the performance pack. I really hope that someone at Ford is listening and decides to put the adaptive suspension system as an option on some other trim, because it's really well done. Out on an autocross course, it's very firm and very stable. But then out on the open road, when it's in comfort, it is magical in its transformation of the ride quality in the Mach-E, even though it has even lower profile tires on the GT than the one that I have. So definitely would go that direction.
So that's the last one we have pay for play at the moment, but I think something we should cover, or should, I guess, address, somebody's asking is the logo that we're trying to decide on.
Oh, yes.
There's a survey still going on.
The survey is still going on, and we will enter another round here. Actually, I can, let's see here. let's find the media file. So why don't you go ahead and address this next question here while I attempt to locate the file I'm looking for.
Oh, we've got, let me see. Opinions on new Tundra having issues already. Will it go 300K with the twin turbos? It's a good question. Toyota's they've never really gone all in on turbos before until now, and these are big V6s with turbos, and it remains to be seen because Toyota's obviously a reliable company in general, but they don't normally do stuff like this. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because the previous generation Tundra, its first couple of years were not very reliable years for it. But again, very different trucks. So I don't know if history will repeat itself, but.
And I haven't heard of any major specific engine trouble, like mechanical engine troubles. I would say more oddities and complaints. So like I haven't heard of any engine replacements or any major mechanical work needing to be done. I'm not overly concerned, but I would also say that there is no way, but zero way, a turbo engine will ever be as long-term reliable and dependable, especially with uneven or uncertain maintenance, than a naturally aspirated engine, especially an under-aspirated engine like Toyota tends to prefer. Like Toyota's never really, except for their high performance models, they never really push the boundary in naturally aspirated engine performance, and they're not really pushing the boundary with their turbocharged engine performance compared to other European options either, but it's never going to be as reliable as a naturally aspirated engine. So I would definitely say keep that one in mind. Is it going to go 300,000 miles with a turbo? It's entirely possible. There are certainly turbocharged engines. I would not be concerned 200,000 miles with a turbo. I've owned a turbo engine that had over 200,000 miles on it, on its original turbo. And that part's not a problem. But is it going to be as reliable as the V8? Probably not. So let's move over here to the logo here. And I have figured out a way to share this here. So these are our current logo alternatives here. Can I make that any bigger? There we go. There we go. So these are currently the logo options that we have been looking at. So feel free to sound off down there in the comment section below. We'll figure it out. You can also head over to the poll. If you haven't seen the poll, it's over at facebook.com/AlexNatos. So these are the logo options available right now. Up here, well, up there, top, we have number 1. This logo design was the most popular so far. These are the top 2 finalists. First 3 are really just variations on a theme. We'll actually have a different poll just on these finalists a little bit later. And then down there at the bottom is the one that I kind of personally like, but nobody else here likes it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of 1 and 2. I actually have not seen number 3 until now, but
it's basically like,
number 1 and 2 with a little bit of fade there. Yeah,
a little fade, and the logo is the O, and
My perspective is that shape, that graphic, would be easily, like after a while, would be very easily identified as this is Auto Buyer's Guide. That's what that symbol is when you see it very tiny in a circle as the thumbnail, or not thumbnail, but as the actual channel, logo. You're going to immediately be able to recognize that one. Now, the other one that he likes. For me, that could be anybody. That could be a lot of different things. So that's where I
could be. We'll see. It's still open.
It's very open.
Yeah,
very open.
We don't know where we're going to go.
We don't know.
Christopher here is asking, is Bronco Sport a good alternative to a Mach-E? That is the first time I've heard of this question. Yeah. Obviously, very different vehicles. Bronco Sport's obviously really small.
Right.
The Mach-E is not, and it's electric.
Right. And Bronco Sport can do more off-roady type things.
Oh yeah, way more.
Yeah.
Bronco Sport's a great value. I love the Bronco Sport. I have to say Ford, I've never been it's not like I'm a Ford fanboy. I did not grow up with Fords. I have actually owned, oddly enough, a Ford here and there. But I would say over the last 30 years, I have never found too many Fords that exciting. Some Ford, they're good cars here and there. Nothing wrong with Fords in the 2000s. I liked the Fusion. I liked the C-Max when it came out. I liked some of their other things. The F-150 is obviously a solid truck option. It's not usually my favorite. But now all of a sudden, Ford has started having some really big hits. Bronco Sport, Bronco, Maverick, Mach-E, and Lightning. They've actually had a strangely really good run. As sort of averagey as I find Explorer and Escape in some ways, The latest products have been fantastic. So I would say hard to go wrong with either one.
F-150 versus the mid-size trucks. He doesn't off-road. He only needs to tow 2,500 pounds. He wants the bed. Mid-size better than city or full size for the city. So we just looked at a Maverick, and obviously there's now a Santa Cruz. If you're in the city, those both are obviously going to just be easier to get around town. They're going to be easier to turn, easier to park. So, you got to think about your priorities and where you are specifically, because out here where Alex lives, that's not as big of an issue. If you have to get up to a mountain, you're not going to, the size of the truck won't really be an issue. So I don't know.
And I would say, my problem, because he's saying mid-size trucks, I would say, my problem with the mid-size trucks is that they're also old and boring.
All of them, pretty much. Except there's a new Frontier, but
that's true. There's a new Frontier.
It's, for me, that truck the outside looks really good. I think they did a good job of the exterior. The interior, they didn't give it as nice of an interior as the new Pathfinder.
I wanted more gadgets.
They didn't do much with that. Yeah. After all that time, I feel like they would have given it the fresh new interior that all the other Nissan products are getting, and then said they gave it just a nicely massaged version of like the Titan interior. I don't know.
I don't mind the interior design. I miss the gadgets.
Yeah.
Like why? I want the latest adaptive cruise control with the lane centering and the this and the that. And they gave it some of the newer gadgets, but not all of them.
And I used to drive a Toyota Tacoma in 2016, and it was a rear-wheel drive, not even four-wheel drive. And it was a 6-foot bed. So it was the longer of the two bed options. And it was a good truck. I mean, I would say that engine and transmission combination as it currently is, the V6 3.5 liter with the 6-speed automatic, they don't work well together in that application, and therefore that's why I got rid of it, because it was actually very annoying to drive. It was very hard to go fast in it unless you pushed the ECT power button and whatnot. So that wouldn't be my first choice in the midsize segment. And also the Ranger is, for me,
Ranger's old. It's getting replaced here soon.
It's super old because it was already old before it came here. It was already overseas, and it was already out for a while. And the new version is already, from what I've heard and seen, it's shaping up to be not too different in terms of the actual exterior body. I guess I think they're doing the Nissan Frontier route with that.
It makes sense. They probably will,
because they're going to save money doing that.
I would say the big thing to keep in mind as far as ease of parking is that the average midsize truck is about the same length as the average half-ton truck, for cafe reasons primarily. So the main difference is in the width. So they are a little bit easier to park because they're narrower, but you're still not going to be able to fit it in a compact parking spot. They're still going to be pretty long. So depending on the city you live in, that could be a problem, or it might not be a problem. It's like I live out in the country. My office is in San Jose, California. San Jose is the 10th largest city in the country, but it's a ginormous suburb basically in structure. So everything here has a huge parking space. And it's like, you don't even park on the street. Why would you park on the street? There's a parking lot with big parking spots for that, designed for Suburbans and big pickup trucks. It's a thing. It's like if you live in Houston, probably not a problem. Everybody's got a truck anyway. But if you're like, in New York or San Francisco or Detroit or Seattle, et cetera, then things can get a little tricky. And I would say the only solution to that would be something like a Santa Cruz or a Maverick, because those are enough smaller that then it is going to be easier to park. The Maverick and the Santa Cruz are at least 10 inches shorter than the shortest half-ton truck, and 10 inches shorter, oddly enough, than mid-sized trucks as well, and a lot narrower. So the Maverick is the narrowest of the bunch, and it's about 7 inches narrower without the mirrors than an F-150, and including the mirrors, which is an important thing to include for garages and parking spots as well, then it's like 12 inches. It's about a foot shorter. So it's quite a bit easier to park, I would say, there. Moving along here, JLR products. Yes, we do have a few on schedule. XF I don't know about, but there is an F-Pace coming at some point. They don't have too much new. So, and they're, sometimes Jaguar Land Rover is a little bit tricky to deal with. So I generally don't ask for some of their products, but hopefully we will have the new Range Rover in at some point. The F-Pace is coming, and I have asked for an E-Pace. So we'll see how those go.
Most well-rounded vehicle for under 40,000. This is another one of those. We gotta dig and think about what we can choose here.
Crossover or not crossover?
Right.
I'm going with crossover since everybody seems to be wanting one, and I would say that fits the definition of well-rounded.
Right.
I would say it's hard to go wrong with a RAV4 hybrid.
Yeah, and if you can, The Prime is not under 40, right?
Prime is not under
it's a little
40,
over, yeah.
but you could probably get an Escape plug-in hybrid for under 40 because of the deals and of course the tax credit.
Right.
Those are both really good. The Escape hybrid is generally not the highest on my list because styling wise, some people seem to like it and some people don't. I don't mind it. You thought it looked like a overinflated Fusion?
Which one, the Escape hybrid?
The Escape hybrid?
Yeah, for me, it's like the greenhouse is too tall, and it looks like it looks like a duck. That's like for some reason the imagery I see like Donald Duck's head. I don't know how I came to that, but that's what I see when I see the new Escape. And I don't know. I'm
not a fan of the ducky look.
I would much rather have a Bronco Sport.
Bronco Sport's adorable.
That's a good option.
That's an excellent option.
And even the Bronco, I know you can get it around the same starting. It's actually not that much more than the Bronco Sport starting wise. So if you can get your hands on one and you can get one for under 40K, it's a pretty well-rounded vehicle as well. But it's a niche car too. I mean, it can go off-road more than pretty much everything else around that price right now.
I'd say on the sedan front, it's hard to go wrong with top-end Camry or top-end Accord, which would be around that price range there, if you, depending on the exact options you select. One thing I've always found interesting is that the corollary sort of positioning in the brand-wise for both Honda and Toyota is that Camry is aligned theoretically with Venza, supposedly, and Corolla and RAV4 are aligned. Same thing with Honda, supposedly Civic and CR-V and Accord and Pilot are supposed to be, or Passport, supposed to be sort of the theological, bookends there. But the interiors and just the fit and finish and the value is so much better in the sedan than that price-wise corollary, not even to mention the actual positioning in the lineup. So it's like, I think that the Accord's interior is better than the one in the Pilot, but it's priced more like a CR-V. So it's a really good deal anyway around, if you want a sedan, that is. Let's see here. Opinion on the 2022 Palisade. Heard some of the concerning recalls. Oh, did I skip somebody?
Yeah, there's just one before that.
Oops, I'm sorry. We'll get back to you there. There we go.
Nissan Rogue, Bronco Sport, and Mach-E. So we kind of just covered the difference between the Mach-E and the Bronco Sport. Really, they're not direct competitors.
Yeah.
Just mainly because of the fundamental fact that they're...
Which would you take, though, if that was not a thing?
If they weren't, I
would probably get the Mach-E, I think.
Based on design?
Just as far as, all in, if money was not an object, I think I would probably get the Mach-E.
I think so too. I mean, it's the new thing. It's
the new thing.
Unique.
It looks good. I like the look of the Mach-E. Some people are really offended by it, but I actually think it kind of looks good.
I think the Bronco Sport looks really good too, and I know a lot of people prefer that boxy shape. A lot of people are asking why, like for example, the Honda Pilot. People are like, why doesn't it look like the first two generations, that boxy shape that people really liked, and the current one is not like that. I think people really want that, and I personally think I lean towards that kind of shape too in a lot of cars, but at the same time, the Mustang does look really good. So I don't know. But then with the Nissan Rogue, it's also a really good choice. I mean, the interior was much improved over the last one. The design, the outside looks really, really good, I think, overall. And you can get a lot of good features in it, and the price is not bad. So I don't know. And it's bigger than the Bronco Sport, and you can get you can't get that optional third row anymore. But the Mitsubishi Outlander, which is the same thing, can get a tiny little third row. So that would be one I would consider too, just in case you need that. But there is no upgraded engine option for that, though. There's just one option. It's not going to be nearly as fast as what you get out of the electric Mach-E. But
Mach-E is going to be more fun.
It's always going to be more fun and fast. Yeah.
So Joe is asking us here, opinions on the Palisade. Just looking into calligraphy. Heard some concerning recalls. I actually have not heard, and I just looked this up. I can't find anything on the recall other than 2021. It looks like there are 1,000 cars for possible master cylinder contamination. Recalls, I would say, also are actually quite common for any car. And so, I mean, as far as percentage of sales goes, recalling 1,000 cars for as well as these cars are selling is not a huge deal. I would not be overly concerned on that front. I would say that I like the styling of the Telluride better. Remember, they're sisters, so they're mechanically identical vehicles. Telluride's the better selling one. I think it's because it's prettier. But deals are to be had on the Palisade because it's not selling quite as well.
So I personally actually prefer the Palisade. And a funny one recall that was released, I think it was for the first model year, was that the seats were stinking. They were smelling weird. There was some weird odor coming from the leather seats in the Palisade.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think they fixed it, and it was just that 1 year, I think. And so that was a funny one. But
and then there was a side curtain airbag recall that thought that the blah 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 mounting bolts might cause the airbag to not function properly.
You don't want that.
But it doesn't say how many were recalled. So some number was recalled at that point.
And on top of the fact that it's not selling as well as the Telluride, there's also a mid-cycle refresh coming sometime this year. The 2023 Telluride and Palisade. Well, probably the Telluride would get it first because the Telluride was a model year before. Right? It came out for 2019. The Palisade came out for 2020. Yep. So it's possible you'll get the refresh Telluride before the Palisade. So if you're willing to wait for that, I would wait and see if you like the way that looks. But if you're ready to get it right now, it's still a really, really good car. Yeah. So super nice, especially the top trims, limited in calligraphy. It's got like suede headliner. Yep. Got the quilted leather. You don't feel like you're in a Honda in there. And that's why I prefer it, actually.
That front end is just not my thing.
I don't know why people like. I love
front end is not my thing.
I think that's the best part.
It's a little too. Yeah.
I know that's what they're changing.
It's that grill. Yeah.
They're changing that because they've definitely received the complaints about.
Yeah, it's a lot of the faux chrome. I think that's my problem. It's a lot too much faux chrome. And then Hyundai's really loves this divorced headlight thing where like the headlights are down here and the other lights are up here. And it's like, why can't headlights be where headlights are supposed to be?
I like it. I think it's different. I don't know. Telluride's really good too. I think. I will say though, Kia just came out with their new logo, and so they've grafted it on to the existing models. And on the Telluride as it currently looks, you can tell it was like, oh, we just put it on here. So I'm hoping with that refresh, they sort of massage the design a little bit to make that logo integrate a little bit better. But it sounds like it doesn't really matter because you're looking at the Palisade. So
yeah. I don't find it a problem. I mean, it was there before. I mean, it's a new logo.
Is they don't have,
it's in the logo spot.
Well, it's in the logo spot, but the weird thing is, even if you get their black edition, their night edition, the Kia logo, there is no dark version of it. No matter how you.
I don't like the black one either.
They only make that bright silver version of that new logo. So
I just hope you can get the top end Telluride without black wheels, because I think black wheels are stupid.
I know that is a weird choice. You can only get those on the S6 Prestige models. That's a weird move.
Just not a black wheel fan, I have to say.
Yeah, I know a lot of
do you think Honda will have a tough time releasing HRV, CRV, Pilot, and Accord all within the same year or two? I don't think so. There's a bit of a precedent for them. I mean, Honda's tends to have these packaged refreshes in short amounts of time, especially since they're probably all going to be closely related as far as their platform goes. We don't know exactly, but Honda tends to make Pilot and Accord related, and HRV and CRV may either be semi-related or they may be related to products that they've already released. Right. So obviously CRV is going to have a corollary with Civic, and how much Civic is going to be in CRV versus HRV, we don't know. But they are definitely closely related on that front. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. And Pilot and Accord have often shared electronics systems, etc. So that should be okay.
And it should be interesting to see because, the Toyota Camry came out before the current Honda Accord came out, but Honda even themselves said the Accord is not selling nearly as well as we wanted it to. So that might explain why they've already said this is the year we're changing it up. We're trying to get a new version out. So it'll be interesting to see how drastically different it might be, because maybe they determined the design is what threw people off, and the reason they don't like them, or it could just be the crossover craze. I don't know. Could be, because the Camry's selling fine. It's not even. Right. I don't think it's suffered that much, if any.
I mean, it's a coalescing of sales thing. So it's like, there are fewer sedans out there, so they're still the pie is shrinking, but their section of the pie is growing. So it's as Ford exited the market and GM exited the market, and of course, Chrysler doesn't have anything mid-sized anymore. That pie just is getting smaller. Yeah. But yeah, there's still a lot of money to be made because there's still a lot of sedans being sold, but there just aren't as many opportunities there to hit on anything, I think. Is the thing.
And then Honda doesn't have like an Avalon competitor, but now the Toyota Avalon's going away, so that's even fewer sedans. Not that the Avalon was much bigger than the Camry, but it was another option. So I don't know. We'll see. It's
the end of the sedan, really. It is. So Lord Ultimate is asking, why isn't the Genesis GV80 on this top SUV list? Price tag, because this person was asking about under 50, and I don't think I would buy the GV80 in absolute base form.
No.
I would want at least a little bit on it. and then you're kind of over that price tag there.
I would at least want the V6 too. I mean, the 4-cylinder is really good, but the GV80 is a little bit heavier. Now the GV70, the 4-cylinder fits and runs just fine, but with the GV80, I would want to spend a little bit extra money to get that V6 twin turbo experience, because it is sonically better and it makes the experience seem a little bit more elevated.
And someone here is asking about the Sequoia teaser.
Yeah, so we just checked that out yesterday, and we were actually both very surprised to see that. And I don't know if all of you've noticed, or some other outlets found this out before we were able to discover it, but in the bottom left corner of the teaser that they shared, there's a message that says something about the forest and the trees in view soon, or something along those lines. The forest and its trees will all be in view. So that basically means it's a Sequoia. They didn't confirm that, but that's definitely what it's going to be. But the actual the car that you see there doesn't look Sequoia sized, at least in my opinion. Because the current Sequoia is pretty long. It's got a long third row area, that window, but space. The greenhouse is pretty wide, and this one, it looks a bit more narrow. I don't know. It seems like it's smaller, but there are some rumors circulating that there might be two lengths, sort of a la suburban Tahoe type situation. So we'll see. And also with the Land Cruiser gone, it could be filling that platform this time around. It might be on it might be a little smaller. It might be smaller.
That's what I was thinking. Is that maybe it's like LX size. Land Cruiser size.
Yeah.
But less expensive.
And we know it's probably going to look just like the Tundra in the front, with maybe some minor tweaks. Which for me, I think the front end of the Tundra works for that truck. I'm not sure if that would work on a boxy SUV for me. I mean, it is already.
I could do it.
We'll have to see, because it'll be pretty soon. It's coming pretty close. So we'll see very soon.
So Drew is asking us here, thoughts on the new Volkswagen Arteon with the new engine and design.
Right.
I have to say, I was disappointed that at the last Volkswagen event that I was attending, I was not able to drive the new Arteon. They had an Arteon there, and I got very, very excited. And I'm like, yes, it's the new Arteon. And then I got down to see it, and I'm like, oh, it's the old Arteon. So not sure when we'll be able to get our hands on it. Apparently, Volkswagen has been prioritizing the production of a bunch of other things over it. So it's just not here for us to drive yet.
But it's clear that they're trying to fight the Stinger with their, the Stinger has that new base 2.5 liter with where it's 300 horsepower. So this new Arteon has 300 horsepower out of the same 2-liter turbo.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to see how much that improves, because it's already a very good car. It's just slightly, I think people say slightly underpowered, maybe for what the size sedan it is. But we're looking forward to seeing that new engine in there, how that drives.
Yep. So. Let's see, Garrett's asking about the Mountain Garden channel. Yes, sorry about that. There are plans, hopefully with Brian doing more content here at Alex and Autos, and any, the EV Buyer's Guide channel that hopefully will be continuing on. If you haven't checked that one out, be sure and find the EV Buyer's Guide YouTube channel. And hopefully I'll have more time to work on the Mountain Garden. We're still trying to figure out exactly what that's going to be. Maybe we can move Brian to a mountain and he can do some mountain gardening. So we'll figure that out in the future.
Yeah.
When is Mazda getting a new transmission? There are so many rumors about this. The theory is that they are going to have an 8-speed, but we don't know exactly what that means. Is it going to be their 8-speed? Is it going to be Toyota's 8-speed? Details are still sketchy on that one. But I agree. Mazda needs a new transmission. The 6-speed is getting really long in the tooth. Yeah. But the real reason they continue using it is simply because they own the rights to it and they build it in their own factory. So it's the cheapest transmission for them to use at the moment. When Ford and Mazda had the breakup, Mazda kept the transmission factory and they got the rights to continue building the transmission. The Mazda 6-speed is actually still based on a Ford 5-speed, which was based on a Ford 4-speed. So that's why the transmission is so big and heavy. If you've ever seen a Mazda in Mazda body in white, where they have the drivetrain and the chassis together with no body panels, that's referred to as the body in white, with the engine in it, you can see that the transmission is enormous. It's a very, very large, physically very large transmission. It's at least double the size of an Aisin 8-speed or a ZF 9-speed. So hopefully soon. Has there been any rumors? I think CX-50 is supposed to get something new.
Well,
but have we heard?
Well, the CX-50 is not on the rear-wheel drive inline 6 platform.
Correct.
That's coming. So I
thought it was going to get a new transmission, but I could be wrong there.
It's an 8-speed. I believe it's an 8-speed.
Let's hope. So let's hopefully that will be changing soon. Let's see here.
Well, so I see two questions. I went back sort of up a little bit.
Okay.
But, somebody was asking, are you optimistic about Chrysler's future? And then the next person asked, do you know if the minivan market will have an EV option soon? I think those tie together well because Chrysler's future very likely will include a Pacifica all-electric version because there have been rumors. There have been rumors, and they've sort of alluded to it, and we talked about that in the last show a little bit, how they want to become kind of an EV startup brand, and that there will be existing or EV versions of existing models, and there are only 2 models, so we've got 2 to choose from. So one of those is gonna have to be a minivan. So hopefully they follow through with that because I will
believe this when I see it.
Right now, they were they were the first. They were the first to bring any hybrid to a minivan.
Yes.
They had the plug-in Pacifica before the Sienna even had the hybrid. So
and they have the plug-in. It's a plug-in, and the Sienna is still not a plug-in. I have to give them a lot of credit for that, but I do wonder. And no one knows. Obviously, it's an open-ended question. Supposedly, Stellantis has given all the brands lots of money and lots of time to make themselves profitable.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out in reality.
Yeah.
What was the other one you found up there?
Well, are you optimistic about Chrysler's future?
Optimistic. I don't know if I would say optimistic. I tend to be realistic. I would love to see that, but I want to see them actually spend the money first. I want to see a plan.
Right.
More than one airflow and a rumor of an electric minifan. I want to see I want to see them actually hiring people. I want to see some designs, some concepts. I want to see blobs under a sheet at least. Like let's show some blobs under a sheet and say this is the future of Chrysler. It's going to be 6 new EVs, and this is our timeline. But we don't have that yet. We have an airflow, a rumor, and a new CEO with a pledge. That's it.
Exactly.
So
at least Toyota and Hyundai Kia give you that. What he said, the whole here's what we're gonna bring you. Toyota even just showed them all. They didn't even put covers on them, but Hyundai and Kia were like one by one ripping off the sheets on there. So I think that increases excitement and makes you feel more confident about it. So Chrysler,
fingers crossed.
Chrysler should try to do something like that if they have something coming.
So Kermit's saying that Mazda's just used the ZF8 speed. I'm going to be really intrigued to see what they use in their rear-wheel drive car. I'm betting, though, it's going to be an Aisin automatic transmission because of their tie-up with Toyota and the fact that Toyota owns a tiny percentage of Mazda, but mainly that they have coordinated and cooperated with things in joint ventures before. So I would not be surprised if it ends up being Mazda's engine, Toyota's transmission, essentially, and that same combination happening in a Lexus vehicle at some point. Because Lexus, there are these consistent rumors that Lexus wants an inline-6 engine for the IS replacement at some point in soon. So we'll see how that goes. Acura Integra Type R and Integra timing. I'm assuming you're meaning Integra Type R, which I believe there was some tiny rumors about.
Well,
or you mean Golf
might be
Type
saying
R?
Civic Type R
Civic Type
and Integra.
Okay.
We'll see the Integra very soon, like this quarter, I believe.
Civic Type R, we're going to be seeing very, very, very soon as well. Probably very similar in timing. I personally really hope that there is an Integra Type R. I know that Acura has kind of said maybe, maybe not, whatever, but they did not deny that Type R has happened in the past. And they're big on Type S now, all of a sudden.
Right.
So that would work as a Type R in my head.
Yeah, the Type R, powertrain, transmission. Now, obviously, we know there's a 6-speed coming for the Integra, but if there was a Type R or a Type S, would they put the same 6-speed from the Type R in it? I don't know. I don't know. We'll see, because it's Acura. They might not. But
with Acura and any potential, just totally speculative here, I would assume in my head that an Integra Type R would need an automatic transmission of some sort to be at least available. Some dual clutch thing or whatever. That I think is the only tricky bit for a potential Integra Type R would be that lack of transmission. And the 10-speed does not fit in the Civic platform, so I've been told. Maybe there's a way to shoehorn it in. It can obviously handle the power because it's in the TLX. But whether it can handle it long enough, long-term enough, etc., we don't know. Lots of open-ended questions. Yeah.
Somebody said he missed the last 10 minutes and he wanted to know if we asked or answered a question about the RAV4 Prime and whether, I guess, the EV range is good enough on there. So, well, I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Why don't you pop it up there and we'll see how it goes here. We'll get back to you, Jim, in just a second here. If I use a lot of electric range, can it go? Oh, can gas go bad? This is a good question. So no, every plug-in hybrid out there has in their software programming conditions to make sure that the vehicle consumes gasoline so it doesn't sit in any area for too long. Also, remember that cars, it's not a completely closed gasoline system because there is an evap canister and a breather line, etc. But it's about as closed as you can get in a modern car. So there's really not much of a concern about gas going bad. You'll be fine in the car long term. And if you're in the EV auto modes, it will automatically turn on the gasoline engine when you floor it, that sort of thing. So there is going to be gasoline consumed. But the goal here, like most plug-in hybrids, is not the elimination of gasoline, because if you were after that, you would have bought an electric car. It's mitigation of gasoline. So you're still consuming gasoline, but you're consuming it at an average slower rate, moving a lot of your consumption over to electricity. So let's get back to Jim here. Any updates, any chance to drive one yet? So I guess, so we covered this a little earlier in the video, just to recap here. So Rivian started reaching out to early order holders. So hopefully you've got a call from them. If you didn't, you should actually call their customer service number. If you have an early reservation and you selected a max pack and a few other potential options, they're giving you the opportunity to unselect those options and speed up your delivery. Apparently, the Max Pack is coming sometime later. They decided to build the mid-size pack first because apparently a relatively small number of orders were the small pack and a small number of orders were the big pack. The like 80-something, 85% or whatever was the mid-size packs. That's the one they're focusing on first. Also, apparently some trim levels may not be available right at the beginning, so you can call customer service to figure that out. I have had a chance to drive one. I am not supposed to talk about it yet because it was an employee's vehicle and it was a very early pre-production vehicle. So hopefully that's coming soon. Their PR people just reached out to me today, actually. So hopefully we'll be getting some seat time in the Rivian R1T at some point here soon. I know that the very earliest production models were all sold to employees, which is very similar to what other companies have done, like Tesla seems to do this with a lot of their vehicles, primarily to help work out bugs. But apparently there are actual customer deliveries happening now. So at this point, we're starting to see Rivians out in the wild that are not owned by employees. They're actually owned by customers. Exactly what the production timeline is, we don't know. It seems like I am among the first few thousand reservation holders. So see how that goes.
Mr. McDeLorean, I just want to point out, he commented that he really appreciates that you did the car seat comparison video. He's got 2 rear-facing child seats in the back, and he found that very insightful. So I think we should try to continue.
2 rear-facing. Wow.
2, yeah, that's a lot.
Wow, that's a lot of rear-facing.
1 and 1.
Yeah.
But no,
he's either got twins or he's got 2 wives.
Right. But we'll keep that in mind because I know people like to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that is the plan.
I'll try to get a hold of a baby seat for me.
Clearly, just need to have kids. That's what you need to do. Yeah, you just need to find someone, have kids here soon. Any updates in the upcoming Sequoia? No, but stay tuned because next week, I believe we should have more details. I'm not clear when we'll be able to talk about it, but I know we don't even actually know if we're going to see the Sequoia, mind you. Right. So this one clarification: we are seeing something new, and we're seeing that something new on Tuesday. I think Tuesday evening. Yeah. When we can talk about it and what it is, we don't know either of those things yet. Right. All we know, it is a new thing, and we will see it Tuesday. Right. Whether we can film it, that also we don't know. One would assume we can, and one would assume that at some point that same week we'll be able to talk about it. Right. Is there a way? This is a good question. Is there any way to get a new F-150 Lightning in the coming months if you don't already have reservation? Yes. The reservations are not binding, and dealers are interesting things. Let's put it this way. So a lot of reservations appear to have been reserved by dealer employees for dealer use, etc. This is something that we saw with the Mach-E, something we saw with the Ford Maverick. So if those 2 vehicles are anything to go by, and Bronco as well, I should actually add there too. If those vehicles are anything to go by, there should be models, if you are willing to hunt and possibly pay more than MSRP. And I do say possibly because one thing that surprised me actually is that we had the Ford Maverick in for review, and this caused me to think, can I actually get one of these if I wanted to? And a simple search actually yielded that there are about 30 Mavericks at dealers in the San Francisco Bay Area right now that are just on the shelf. And I contacted 2 of the dealers, and 2 of them here were willing to sell them for MSRP. So no, crazy markup because it's a brand new truck. So I was a little bit heartened by that, thinking, well, maybe this is the way that it could be with Lightning. And when you take a look at some of those, it's obvious that they're pre-orders. The way that some of the formatting, works and looks there. So dealers may have had an employee pre-order and then they said no, or it could have just been a customer that pre-ordered the car, decided not to take it, got the refund instead. It also is likely that there is at least some production capacity that is simply targeting dealer inventory as well. That's actually entirely possible as well. So hopefully that is the case.
I've got one. Let's try this one. So would you do a comparison between the 2022 Acura MDX and the QX60 from Infiniti?
Ooh, that's a good
Those
one.
are definitely like direct competitors. I think it would be well worth it to possibly do that because they're both in their standard forms. They're very good. Obviously, there's no high performance QX60 that we know of coming or anything, but in the standard form, they're pretty much the closest competitors you can get in that segment. So
I would love to do it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get my hands on both of them at the same time, but yeah, I like that. I like that number. Oh, here's a good one. Do you think WRX horsepower numbers are because of a gentleman's agreement with Toyota? No, I think that the WRX numbers are where they are because an STI is coming out later, and you have to save room for the STI. And I would bet that STI's numbers are going to stick fairly close to the outgoing model, because Subaru's budget is a tight one, and they couldn't really change the internals of their all-wheel drive system or the transmission too much. They're still based on the outgoing models' transmissions, and so there's only so much power they can handle. So I'm thinking it just gives them cushion for an STI and a reason for you to go from the one to the other, I think, is the primary reason there. Here's a good one. Thoughts on the markups for popular models?
Well, this is happening a lot, as obviously I'm sure that's the reason you asked. It's happening a lot because there are a lot of things going on in the industry and the logistics side of things and the supply chain that are causing dealers to believe that they need to charge you an exorbitant amount more than normal to get your hands on something that you really don't need to work too hard to get right now. So, and there are actually some executives, like for example Ford, Mike Levine, you can follow him on Twitter. He'll catch dealers. People will show him, oh, here's a dealership that's doing a markup. Can you help me? And I've seen him help people get back down to MSRP on that. So it's interesting that there's that kind of stuff going on.
Yeah,
it's really
worth noting though that the manufacturers can't control what the dealers sell the car for.
Right.
Remember, the dealers are a franchise of the manufacturer, and so Mike can call them up and argue and beat them and shame them, but he can't actually tell them you must sell this for MSRP or less. Rather sadly, so that is just a thing. I would say the easy answer to this is don't ever use that dealer. If you see a dealer that is charging crazy markups on the car, I don't have a problem shaming them. Shame them all you want on social media, and then go buy your car from a dealer that will sell it to you for MSRP. And the reality is that there are dealers that will do this everywhere. It is absolutely not a problem. When we got the Mach-E, the dealer didn't know me from anybody else, never introduced ourselves in any other way. Walked into the dealer already had it, didn't haggle at all. Dealer had it for $1,000 below MSRP on a brand new Mach-E. And we were one of the first 100 deliveries in the US. So it's absolutely possible to find a dealer that is not going to cheat you.
Yeah. You just got to look for them.
Yep.
All right. So are all plug-in hybrid systems built similarly? That's a good one. Well, from what I know and what I can tell, one glaring difference between Toyota's Tucson hybrid and the RAV4 Prime plug-in hybrid is the all-wheel drive system. Hyundai's as well as Ford's are both mechanical, actual connected drive shaft, whereas Toyota's is electric in the back. So it's just a separate electric motor driving the rear wheels. and it's very much on demand only. With like the Tucson, you can lock it in. You can make it all four wheels going at the same time. So if you're doing more off-road or gravelly type stuff, and you need that kind of traction or that kind of capability, that would be the one to go for. But other than that, he's saying the Tucson can't heat the cabin with EV only on. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds like
Hyundai has preferred a very simple model. The Tucson does have a small heater, so it does not rely as I recall, I'm sure someone will correct me here. As I recall, it's a little bit different than the Ioniq. The Ioniq and the Niro hybrids, if you want to heat the cabin, has to turn on the engine. And it will just use the engine for power. It's not simply just using it as a space heater. As I recall, the Tucson has a very small electric heater, but not a very big one. So if you're in an actual cold area, yes, it will start the engine to heat the cabin. But if you're like in California and it's 65 outside, you want a little bit of heat, it will do that without starting the engine, as I recall. On the RAV4 Prime, it was definitely targeting engine off. So it has a much bigger heater. It will heat the cabin perfectly fine with the engine off. Design-wise, the RAV4 uses the same dual motor setup that every other RAV4 does. And the motor just directly powers the wheels. The big difference is the battery is bigger, so it can draw more power and power the wheels directly. In the Tucson, it actually uses a different electric motor than the regular hybrid model. It uses a bigger one because the regular hybrid has a single small motor, and it still has the traditional automatic transmission. So it's going to feel like a regular automatic car. You're going to actually feel the gear shifts. You're going to feel them shift as you speed up and as you slow down, both. The mechanical all-wheel drive system, as you said before. But one correction, the RAV4's rear all-wheel drive system is not just slip-based. It does send power to the back
I think I was thinking of
predictably.
hybrids. I know the Prime is a little bit different.
Both hybrids, both do that. Both do that. It can't send a lot back there.
Okay.
But when you start from a stop, it will always send power to the rear. So it actually tries to send 50% of the power from an immediate start to the rear. Obviously only until you hit a very low threshold, but it does that for traction reasons. Gotcha. It feels a little bit better. If you're in a Prius all-wheel drive car, then over a certain speed, the rear does nothing, just completely cut out. In the RAV4, it's much higher. So the rear doesn't cut out until I think it's like 90 miles an hour or something around there, that the rear will finally cut out. Steady state highway travel, it's not going to send anything to the rear. But the big thing is like snow driving is not going to be the same in a RAV4. The reason for that is the battery in a regular RAV4 hybrid is pretty small. So in order to send more power to the rear axle when the front is slipping, you have to actually hit the accelerator pedal more. It's an unnatural thing. And a lot of people are trained, like if you start slipping in snow, back off the throttle till you have grip. In a RAV4 hybrid, you can't do that. You actually have to kind of dig deeper because the engine has to spin up to generate power to send to the rear motor. The RAV4 Prime, it's better because the battery is bigger and it can therefore send power to the rear without that, but it's still not going to be as sure-footed as the mechanical all-wheel drive hybrids.
Well, a nice sort of follow-up to that is any chance of a Camry Prime type of vehicle. Now, there's already a Prius Prime. Mm-hmm. It's not using the same, I don't think it's the same system as that's in the RAV4 Prime. Obviously, it's not as powerful.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure the reason they brought it to the RAV4 before the Camry was it's a crossover. They wanted to see if people who are buying crossovers are also willing to buy a Prime. And I think the Prime is selling pretty well where you can get it. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't expect it.
You don't think
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Packaging would be the big reason.
Yeah.
In the RAV4, when it's higher off the ground, higher ground clearance, et cetera, so it's easier to package the battery in without it looking funny. Right. If you were to package the RAV4 Prime battery in the Camry the same way, it would look weird because the car would be 3 inches higher, and it would look like a Subaru Legacy Sus, the sport utility sedan that they used to have. Looked a little funny, or the S60, cross country. Yeah, it would look a little peculiar, I think. And the RAV4, you don't notice it because you expect the vehicle to be a little higher. So the fact that it's raised up versus the regular hybrid, it has a little bit less ground clearance. You don't really notice it in that.
Well, what will be interesting is Toyota has pretty much confirmed that a new Prius is coming, so they are going to keep making it. There will be a new generation coming soon, but what will they do with the Prime? Will they figure out a way to make it like the RAV4s, or will they stick with what it currently has? We don't know. We haven't seen, but they've also said the Prius should be a looker this time around because that could be, any level based on what the current one looks like.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that looks like. But.
And one last question or comment here is Dave here. Yeah, Ford threatened to stop supplying scumbag dealers Lightnings. Yeah, the problem I reiterate there is they can only do what is in the franchise agreement. So Ford is bound by the franchise agreement. So is the deal. Oh, pardon me. I'm like having a problem here with my. It's the LaCroix.
Yes.
Someone asked. It's the LaCroix here. But they're bound by franchise dealer agreements on both sides of this equation. So the only thing they can do is institute whatever penalty is in the franchise dealer agreement or whatever arrangement is associated with it. So if Ford has an agreement, which as far as I don't know, they do not. So if Ford could create some sort of agreement where, they had their allocation gets reduced or whatever, that's one thing. The only other thing they could do is that most manufacturers have some sort of scheme where you sell one car, you get another car, or you sell X number where you get the next one. So it doesn't matter how much you raked the customer over the coals, you would still get the next one in this allotment. But what they can do is they can say you aren't going to get any more than your allotment. So most manufacturers have a pool of available cars, and they'll say, well, outside this agreement where you sell one, you get one. If you sell one and you want two and you're nice, maybe we'll give you two. So that could happen to dealers that really, get in trouble for this sort of thing. But other than that, there's actually not a lot that the manufacturer can do. The manufacturer cannot control how the transaction takes place in this way. They can't control the pricing of the vehicle. They can't control the delivery, etc. It's a carrot and stick arrangement, but remember that there's a whole lot more carrot than there is stick. Whole lot less stick going on with car dealers. So there's incentives, and they can cajole, and they can call, and they can counsel, and they can try and emphasize to dealers that this is a really, really bad idea. That you have now offended your customers. So why would someone from out of state want to go and visit your dealer on the off chance? If you're in an area with multiple Ford dealers, why would you do that when someone could just go to another dealer? And why would that customer want to go back if they're silly enough to pay that ginormous markup? Why would they go back to you when they realize that they got a raw deal? So with that out of the way, let's sign off now and see all of you perhaps sometime next week. We're at 2 events next week. So I don't know how the timing goes for a live show, but that should happen soon. And of course, make sure and send your email with your name and your address and a phone number. All of those things must be on there too. It's a conspiracy at alexnautos.com for swag. We have jackets, we have toques, lots of water bottles, all that other sorts of stuff. And we will see all of you a little bit later. Bye,
everyone.